after a lot of effort on the Democratic side to negotiate a final deal for the American people, Republicans in Congress plunged headfirst into the Trump shutdown. How'd we get here? Why is it that Republicans and President Trump are unwilling to do the jobs they were elected to do and reach an agreement to fund the military, critical programs for the middle class, address DACA, fund children's health, and take care of disaster aid? Over the last several months, Democrats have bent over backward to negotiate with the White House. Unfortunately, the President and Republican leaders in Congress are like Abbott and Costello. The congressional leaders tell me to negotiate with President Trump. President Trump tells me to figure it out with Republican leaders. Let me talk a little bit about what transpired in the negotiations. First, a little history. Last year, when President Trump ended the DACA program, we immediately began working on a solution that both sides could agree to. Leader Pelosi and I went to dinner with the president. We came away with an agreement to pursue a deal pursuing the DACA Act with border security. The president agreed. But that night and the next morning, the hard right came after him. Breitbart called him Amnesty Trump. Laura Ingraham even insisted he be impeached. By the weekend, he had backed off. Then Congress went to work. In a bipartisan way, Senators Durbin and Graham and their 4 compatriots worked hard to deliver a bipartisan deal. 2 weeks ago, the president had a meeting on national television for the world to see. He said he wanted 4 things: protect the dreamers, secure the border, end what he calls chain migration, and end the diversity visa lottery. And then he said he'd sign what Congress would come up with. Well, the bipartisan Gang of 6 delivered. When the president heard about the contours of the deal on the phone with Senator Durbin, he was thrilled. He invited Senators Durbin and Graham to the White House, but the hard right attacked again. A meeting that could have ended in a bipartisan handshake instead devolved into one of the most infamous meetings of his presidency. But still, we went back to work. Excuse me, have a cold. But still, we went back to work to strike a deal with the president. Yesterday, I talked to the president in the morning. We were not far apart on the issues. A deal to fund military and critical programs for the middle class can be struck. We agreed to the contours of that deal. An immigration deal was reached. We could address children's health insurance, other health issues, disaster aid. We went to the meeting and had a long and productive discussion. I told the president we Democrats were willing to fund the military at the highest levels in history, far above even his budget request. I reluctantly put his wall request for the southern border on the table. It was his request. We left the meeting having agreed to try for a short-term CR that would keep everyone at the negotiating table for a few more days. The president suggested, let's do it by Tuesday night. We said, great. Several hours later, he called back. He said, so I hear we have a 3-week deal. I said, no, Mr. President, no one's even talked to me about a 3-week deal. I heard that's the deal. I said, no one's talked to me. I called Leader Pelosi, no one had talked to her. Then, a few hours later, they called back again. Well, we're going to need this in addition. Things, it was General Kelly, that they knew were far, far right and off the table. Now, the lunch that seemed so promising was quickly overtaken by hard right forces in the administration, even though we bent over backwards to meet the president's demands. Negotiating with this White House is like negotiating with Jell-O. it's next to impossible. As soon as you take one step forward, the hard right forces the president 3 steps back. Now, I want to say, I don't have the personal animus that a lot of my colleagues have towards the president. We're both blunt and direct. I agree with him vehemently on just about every issue, but at least we can talk to one another. But it's next to impossible to strike a deal with the president because he can't stick to the terms. I have found this out. Leader McConnell has found this out. Speaker Ryan has found this out. So here we are on the first anniversary of the president's inauguration, mired in the Trump shutdown. It doesn't have to be this way. We can get big things done. We can fund the military at the highest level ever. We can commit unprecedented resources to the fight against opioids, to our veterans, to pension plans that are drying up. We can protect our southern border and protect young Americans who were brought here as children. We can pass children's health insurance. And I've never seen something so cynical as Republicans pitting groups of children against each other. They hold up CHIP to hold other children, these time the DACA kids, hostage. That's a disgrace. That's not what America wants. We can also pass disaster aid, which Texas, California, Florida, and Puerto Rico want. We can do big things, but the president needs to step up and lead. The Republicans control the presidency, the Senate, the House. They know who's responsible. The American people know that the Republicans control the presidency, the Senate, and the House, and they know who's responsible. America knows this is the Trump shutdown. Only the president can end it. We Democrats are at the table. We're ready to negotiate. The president needs to pull up a chair to end this shutdown.
The Democratic leader filibustered a bipartisan compromise that a majority of senators supported and chose instead a government shutdown. Yesterday, my friend, the senior senator from New York, tried to insist the shutdown was anybody's fault but his own. Anybody else but me, he said. He blamed President Trump because the president wouldn't resolve months of ongoing negotiations over massive issues in one brief meeting and give the senator everything he wanted. He blamed Republicans in Congress, as though everybody didn't know that the Senate rules allow the minority party, if they choose, to obstruct the American people's business and filibuster for their own political purposes. It's possible, but in this instance, done. These rhetorical gymnastics are simply not persuasive. The American people see right through all this bluster. See right through all this bluster. Like the president, like the House, and like a bipartisan majority of senators, the American people want long-term solutions on immigration policy, on government spending, and on all the major issues we've been discussing literally for months and will continue to discuss. But like the president, like the House, and like a bipartisan majority of senators, the American people cannot begin to understand why the Senate Democratic leader thinks the entire government should be shut down until he gets his way on illegal immigration. The American people cannot comprehend why the senior senator from New York is advising his party to keep the government shuttered for American troops, American veterans, American military families, and vulnerable American children until he gets exactly what he wants on the issue of illegal immigration. A situation which does not even become urgent until March. All these other matters are indeed urgent. They need to be dealt with right now. This particular issue does not become urgent until March. I hope Senate Democrats are starting to realize all this. I hope they're starting to realize that their constituents, the President, the House, and a majority of the Senate are on one side of this. On the other side, all alone, the Democratic leader who invented this fortunate hostage situation and led his party into this untenable position. The solution is to end the foolishness. It's hurting millions of Americans who've done absolutely nothing to deserve this. So I would invite all of my colleagues across the aisle to join together and do what is obviously responsible and right for the people we represent. Pretty clear here. Let's reopen the government. Let's resume the bipartisan discussion on funding our troops, DACA, on government spending, and on all the other priorities that all of us can work together to resolve.